Wah. Yo, welcome in for a very exciting episode of SODFS here on a Friday night. We are back at it. I am Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Brown NFL. Here with me tonight is my co-host, my usual running partner, Nathan. You can find him on Twitter at Nate_FFL. Make sure you are following Dynasty or Sons of Dynasty there at Dynasty Sons on Twitter. That's where you'll find all of SODFS content. Nate, welcome in, my man. What's going on with you? How was your week?
It was good. I'm very appreciative to you and Jake for holding it down last week. It was an excellent show. So props to both of you gentlemen, but it's very good to be back. Week 11 has already started off very, very exciting with the Packers-Titans game from last night and the weather concerns that we have all over the league. So it's just an exciting week. I'm happy to be here, man, and ready to talk some football.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Last week we did pretty well. Had Jake on for the second time, as you mentioned, and
He's great.
Yeah, man. He's constantly putting out great content over there at fantasypoints.com. And speaking of that, Sons of Dynasty and SODFS are officially a part of the Fantasy Points Media Group. Make sure you guys check out all of the great content at fantasypoints.com. You can get access to Fantasy Points Premium using our promo code SUNS22 for 10% off your subscription today. Highly encourage you guys all to head on over to fantasypoints.com to check out the content. There's tons of free content there. You don't want to pony up for a subscription, that's fine. We get it. But there's absolutely just tons of free content that you can ingest over there as well.
Yeah, Fantasy Points is fantastic. I do use their optimizer and other tools, and it has led to plenty of success this year. So definitely head over to Fantasy Points, use the promo code. It's a great way to support the show for free if you already want to use some geared content to help yourself win some money.
Let's talk about last night's game a little bit, between the Titans and the Packers. It was a pretty fun game, nothing crazy unexpected. Derrick Henry did Derrick Henry-esque things, and, the rookie Watson came down with another big performance.
Traylon Burks also going off for 21.10 fantasy points is a fantastic thing. I do have him in a lot of season-long fantasy leagues, so that did pay off for me. I did not play a whole lot of DFS last night, but it was an exciting game. But, perhaps the bigger story, unfortunately, coming out of that game was the the Titans offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, getting arrested for a DUI and speeding last night.
Attaboy, tell you.
By Williamson County Sheriff confirmed. This happened roughly, I believe, around 4:30 a.m. So basically forcing Roger Goodell to release a statement saying, you can't drink in the locker room. Please don't drink on team planes. You're putting the NFL in a fucking terrible position. We'd rather you don't do that. Sure, we know what happens. The NFL is a multi-million-dollar league. These guys are going to celebrate big wins. Obviously, rules are going to be broken, but way to throw your fucking team under the bus because it's a shitty look. It's terrible for the Titans. Basically all the momentum they built kind of goes down the toilet. So not super good, but happy for Traylon Burks. That's somebody we were both high on coming into the season. Christian Watson, obviously, with a great game. Derrick Henry in his winter Derrick Henry form. So that's good to see. What I like to see is these players doing well. That's great news.
Yeah, absolutely. Love those Thursday night games that are actually somewhat decent, and that one was.
It was awesome.
But we're going to talk about the main slate today. Coming in this week, we got a couple of teams on bye this week, including the Jaguars, Dolphins, Seahawks, and Bucks. Nate.
Yeah. So there's some, it's funny when you mention teams like the Jaguars, Dolphins, and Maybe even the Seahawks, teams that coming into the year we really wouldn't think would be too DFS or even fantasy football relevant, but especially the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Tua, and Waddle, and all them guys have proven to be great. Kenneth Walker for the Seahawks, Jaguars. We've even seen Trevor Lawrence kind of take a step up, and Christian Kirk has done well on and off throughout the years. So there's a lot of relevant guys that are not available for this week. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how we build our lineups and what we do to kind of take advantage of that main slate on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some relevant injuries on the week. Nate, you want to go over a couple of those?
Yeah, so we're going to start off with Josh Allen and his elbow. He wasn't expected to play last week, did play. He's going to play this week as it's being reported that he will play this week. Viking star wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who's been limited during practice this week with a toe injury, is reportedly in good spirits and moving well during portions of practice that are open to team reporters, and is feeling like he's going to play, per Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. Ravens coach John Harbaugh tells reporters that quarterback Lamar Jackson missed today's practice due to illness, not due to injury, will start Sunday against the Panthers. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford, who was forced out of the game last week with a concussion, is off the injury report, will play Sunday, which is good news. Cooper Kupp is on IR, but those Rams wide receivers, Allen Jefferson, Van Jefferson is back. So looking good for those guys. Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams, Keenan Allen practiced fully, and Williams told Bridget Condon of Twitter that I should be out there. That doesn't necessarily sell me that he will be, but it would be good for the Chargers to get some weapons back for sure. The one that excites me almost the most, something I didn't think I would say probably even a month ago, tight end Cole Kmet with a thigh injury is off the report and good to go. He's been great lately, man. Somebody that I was really high on last year and kind of really soured on as the season started and we didn't see progress, but it's like finally this Bears offense is gelling, obviously. Cole Kmet being a part of that is such fantastic news. So we're happy to see that he will play this week, hopefully. The Chiefs have placed wide receiver McCole Hardman on injured reserve because of an abdomen injury and an illness. He's expected to return after 4 games. Also, Juju Smith-Schuster is out for Sunday night's game in LA. So while it is a Sunday night game, I did want to ask you, Dan, Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore before we head into the next portion of our show?
You're asking me, but I know you know the answer. I'm Kadarius Toney all the way. I invested a lot of my best ball teams in Kadarius Toney, and things didn't pan out over the first half of the season. But fear not, upside is on the horizon. He gets moved to probably one of the best places that we could have hoped for. And not only that, guys are dropping like flies out there. Potentially Kadarius Toney stepping into a very meaningful role as early as this week. So I like him. I know Coach Craig Sport, our buddy here over at Sons of Dynasty, is in on Sky Moore this week. So, we'll do a little a bet on that one and maybe see how it pans out. But I'm excited about, Kadarius Toney this week. Our buddy Nathan here in the chat wants to know what all the hype about Pacheco is in this Chiefs backfield and if he's worth a flex this week. That's typically I do like Pacheco, and I ended up with a bunch of dynasty shares just because I was getting them in 4th, 5th round or even off of waivers, and love that he's stepping in. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire obviously taking a backseat this past week. I don't know if it was a benching or what, but it's a sticky situation as of right now. Now we come back out and Pacheco receives that same workload again this week. Maybe I'll start pushing some more chips towards the middle, but at this point I think I just want to invest in Pat Mahomes and not really try to get into this run game.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were saying, you're not sure what happened. It's just the Chiefs. We don't know what's going to happen from week to week. And because of that, I can't push all my chips on, Pacheco. But I think there's potential there. I think that the week that you start him, Andy Reid will limit his carries, and the week you put him on your bench, he'll do well. So it's really hard to tell, man. If you have something you're more sure of, definitely go that route. Hit us up on Twitter or hit me up on Facebook, Nate, if, closer to Sunday, and we can talk about it more. But it's just so tough due to the Chiefs running back situation in general over the last few years.
All right, this weekend we've been hearing tons and tons of rumors and stuff about the weather heading into this weekend. Obviously, the Buffalo game with the Browns there has been moved to Nate's home field there in Detroit. So they will be playing there. So again, weather's not a concern there. So wheels up for the Bills and Browns that we were wanting to be excited about because of the snowmageddon, snowstorm, snow thunder, I believe is what the report read, which I actually had to Google it because I was unfamiliar with snow thunder. That's not a concern though. So we actually have 5 indoor games on this main slate, and the games that will be outdoor, like the Jets at the Patriots, 38 degrees, 12-mile-per-hour wind, nothing really that concerning. Maybe a little bit of wind for the Lions Giants game, Panthers Ravens. Those are showing to be the potentially the most problematic as far as weather conditions go. But I'll be targeting these indoor games. You got Bears at Falcons, which we know is going to be super popular. And we'll be in on as well. That's there in the Dome. Browns and Bills, as we mentioned, moved to Detroit there at Ford Field. The Eagles at the Colts is another indoor one that I think is worth targeting. Maybe some Eagles players with Dallas Goedert out of the equation. That does, A.J. Brown potentially is still a little banged up. Devontae Smith with a tough matchup, but it is more of a condensed offense at this point. Maybe a good week just to roll Jalen Hurts out naked. Rams at the Saints is also an indoor game. So one that I'm not that interested in. Just pace won't be that good. The Rams suck. The Saints are turnover worthy. Cowboys and Vikings is the last indoor game. Another one that I think is going to be a super popular game, and really excited about getting some game stacks around that game right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of weather concerns this week. In particular, mentioning this Bills-Browns game, I was just looking all over Twitter, all over Google, everywhere I could. When I watched, Al Zeidfeld's podcast at noon, he was the last one that said that the Bills had not left Buffalo yet. And he said they missed the window to leave. So I don't know if there's question that this game may not happen. Buffalo may be stuck there because just looking at the weather reports right now, they're over 4 feet of snow. So there's a chance. I don't know if they're trying to leave by bus and get there Sunday or what the plan is, but I'm sure the NFL, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. They want this game to go forward. Surely they make sure it tries to happen, but I don't know if there's a chance this Bills Browns game, may not take place at this point due to weather. So it's hard to say, but we're definitely getting into the nitty gritty of the season where weather plays it's a huge impact on NFL, DFS, and fantasy football in general.
All right, Nate. Well, you ready to get to it? We can get into some of this positional pricing. And as per usual, we are going to start with the quarterback position.
Yeah, you're basically going to start with what I think is the lock of the week. So go for it, bud.
Well, it felt like a lock of the week last week. And as it goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm talking about Justin Fields, quarterback for the Bears, coming in at 7,600 on this slate against my Atlanta Falcons. Now that price keeps jumping, but it's warranted. Quite frankly, he's still a value this week, and I'm going to go back to him again because over the last 4 weeks, Fields has finished as the QB5 with 24.4, QB5 with 26 points, QB1 with 42.7, and QB1 with 40.4, averaging an eye-popping 36.4 fantasy points per game over this span. Since week 6, he has had more rushing yards than any other player in the NFL with 565. Insert one of the most quarterback-friendly matchups in 2022 with my Atlanta Falcons, and we absolutely have to go back to Justin Fields this week. It's a homecoming for my guy Justin Fields, coming back to the home state here in Georgia, a Kennesaw native in Justin Fields. And not only that, but the Falcons are giving up the 5th most passing fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, and also the 5th most schedule adjusted rushing fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Add in the fact that the Falcons are yielding the most passing yards per game with 280.1 and the 2nd highest completion percentage, the 2nd most passing yards per attempt. Justin Fields is once again coming in as a true smash play on this week's main slate.
Yeah, if you didn't need any more proof that the 2022 NFL season is broken, you need to look no further than the Chicago Bears and Atlanta Falcons being the highest scoring projected game in Week 11. I'm happy for all these guys. It should be a very fun game for both Marcus Mariota and Justin Fields. But a fun fact is Run the Sims says Justin Fields is a 69.5% favorite to hit for more than 160 passing yards. And that just happens to be a very good bet on Prize Picks. I don't play a lot of Prize Picks. I do check it every week. That is something that I am putting money on this week. I think there's no way he doesn't smash that. So if you want some free money, which we all like, go over to Prize Picks, throw in, whatever you can afford, and smash that bet and double your money.
Yeah,
so
I got 5 on it,
bro. I'm telling you, there's a lot of very good DFS sports books and sites like that put out some very interesting picks every week. So if you want to throw some money around, throw your money on Justin Fields at over 160 passing yards against the Falcons.
Yeah, I love that call. I'm all in on Justin Fields once again this week. He did me right last week. He did me right the week before, and I'm just gonna keep riding that train.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump into a guy that's probably he's got to be, I would say, is equally hyped. He's had probably, well, not a great year, but I'm talking about Russell Wilson. What? Don't leave. Wait, don't change the channel. Come back. No, I'm talking about Russell Wilson, Denver Broncos, 5,800. Listen, I know Russell Wilson has been fucking terrible to start the year. I'm not going to lie. He's been shit. However, subpar numbers have resulted in a nice salary drop across the board for the veteran signal caller, and Week 11 could be the time to take advantage, especially of the big value and the, it's unusual. Russell Wilson, he's still a Pro Bowl quarterback. Do we know what's going on in Denver? No. Is he eating a lot of mushrooms? It's possible. But Wilson is arguably probably altogether the sharpest, all-around performance of the season. Came against the Raiders in Week 4 of this season, throwing for 237 yards and a season-high 2 touchdown passes without an interception. That's a very big point. For some reason, we have to make a point that he's not throwing an interception in that game while adding another score on the ground. So, the Raiders' defense is shit. It's absolutely terrible. It's one of the weakest in the NFL at applying pressure to opposing quarterbacks, posting an NFL low, 10 sacks, and tying for the second lowest adjusted sack rate. So I know it's hard to get excited about Russell Wilson. I've been making fun of him all season long. If my buddy Steve and Matt were here, they would definitely attest to that because I've been riding Matt all year about him drafting Russell Wilson in our season-long league. But he's operating without probably Jerry Jeudy with an ankle injury, Kevin Hamler with a hamstring. He'll be facing a Raiders defense allowing 252.4 passing yards per game on the road, along with 10.3 yards per reception. If there's a week to play Russell Wilson at $5,800, he's not going to get any cheaper. He's not going to get any worse. He's not going to get any lower owned. If you want to throw him in a GPP, this is the week to do it. And I stand by this. You know what? The Twitter account that followed me today saying about calling out NFL analysts, it could blow me up on this, but I'm going with it. Russell Wilson, this is his week to shine. 5,800 versus Las Vegas Raiders.
This may be the nastiest play on the whole slate right here, Nate. It's going to be one that I'm going to be hard pressed to click into my lineup, but we're talking GPP. Yeah, I could get on board with it. Jerry Jeudy and some of the Hamler, potentially some of the options missing. Give me a Dulich and Sutton stack here. Maybe a run back there with Josh Jacobs because I don't like Devontae Adams or Derek Carr this week. So, you're talking GPP build. I actually do like that call because I don't believe that the ownership is going to be up very high.
You don't play this in cash. You play this in GPP because you want to be great. You don't want to be average.
Another guy I'm interested in, Nate, this week would be Joe Burrow there for the Bengals. He's coming in at 6,800 this week. And, all in all, that's a pretty decent price for Joe Burrow. We're talking about smashing Justin Fields at 7,600. Joey B, I think, can have a nice little bounce back game. Not many people are going to want to play him after, the Bengals went out and smashed this past game, but it came on the back of Joe Mixon and his 5 touchdowns. And so Joey B's box score is not looking very good right now, but got a great matchup here against the Steelers. Pittsburgh ranks fourth worst in passing fantasy points per game allowed with 17.6, fifth worst in passing fantasy points allowed per pass attempt with 0.490, and overall worst in pressure rate over expectation this season. So Joey B is set up for a nice little bounce back spot here against these Pittsburgh Steelers, and I like Joey.
Yeah, the quarterback position is getting really kind of tough right now. In particular, I think all the positions are getting tough, but finding a good quarterback where you're going to find, somebody to lock onto, I do still think that Justin Fields is the lock of the week at the quarterback position. But when you look beyond that, Russell Wilson's definitely a very highly contested GPP play for sure. The guy I'm going to talk about next, I would argue, is probably the same. Joe Burrow might be your next cash lock against the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I don't hate that call at all. The reason I've changed to my Lions hat is because the guy I'm going to talk about is Daniel Jones. I've been picking on my own Lions team the whole fucking season, but I have plenty of good reason. I think this game will be pretty interesting overall. The Lions have allowed big scores to quarterbacks all year. Justin Fields, 42. Obviously, Smith, 35. Carson Wentz, 31. Tua Tagovailoa, 32. And Jones comes in with a pretty high ceiling for a guy that is this cheap at 5,700 on DraftKings. He's run for more than 50 yards on 3 different occasions and has 32 fantasy points per game. So, Fields just beat him up last week. He set a season high in yards and touchdowns against Detroit with a 13.67-2 line. Pretty solid day, even, before his pass attempts. And while Jones isn't quite the same runner as Fields, not even in the same league as Fields, he's still above average. So with his, just under 8 attempts per game and 43 yards per game and 3 touchdowns in 9 contests, Daniel Jones can have success against this very fucking terrible Detroit Lions defense that I have to call my home team. So while I do think Daniel Jones is a fantastic play this week, I do think he'll be highly owned. I think he'll be highly targeted by a lot of DFS players. I had to show my love for the Lions. I still love you guys. Don't hate me after this.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up some ownership projections over at fantasypoints.com right now. Checking out, let's see, it looks like Justin Fields is the highest projected quarterback
that's
as far as ownership goes. He's coming in at around 15% right now, which isn't too bad. I'll take Justin Fields at 15%. It
what
looks
is Daniel
like
Jones at?
It might take me a minute to get down to him. Marcus Mariota's coming in at 8%. Josh Allen coming in at 8%. Russell Wilson actually coming in at 7%. A guy that I'm interested in this week that we haven't talked about coming in at 7% as well is Dak Prescott. I like Dak this week because I'm in on CD Lamb
and CD Lamb and Michael Gallup.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dak Prescott, 7%. I'll have a decent amount of him. There's Daniel Jones. He's also in that 7% range as well. So a lot of guys that we like right there in that 7% projected ownership range.
Yeah, so for everybody that didn't know, behind the scenes, I did actually have Dak Prescott originally on the sheet, and as well as CeeDee Lamb. These are 2 guys that are definitely highly talented, and I do love their potential for week 11 last week. CeeDee Lamb just went off for 11 receptions on 15 targets, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Before that, though, the season's been dry, so. I try not to chase too much on points. I do think there's a lot of potential there, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dogging CeeDee Lamb's talent or Dak Prescott's, but I just after thinking about it more and more, I felt like I needed to see just a little bit more to really buy in when I felt like I could take some other gambles in these GPPs to try to win some money. So a lot of love to Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup.
All right, Nate, let's move on into the running back portion of tonight's show. And talking about locks, I mean, they got one up at the top as far as the pricing goes. Talk about Saquon Barkley, Nate.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard for me to put Saquon on the sheet because I started a lot of my builds with upper-priced wide receiver guys. So I was having trouble fitting in, these high-tier running backs. I was going with guys like Cordell Patterson, Kenyon Drake, and things like that. But the farther we got into the week, the more research I did and the more I did lineup builds, I found myself kind of going back to Saquon. I do think even at 8,900 is the highest priced running back on the slate against my Detroit Lions. I do think he will be probably pretty highly owned. You could probably fill us in on that by the end of the time I'm done talking, but he's the most expensive running back on the slate by quite a bit, and for good reason. He dominates snaps for the New York Giants and is involved in all facets of this offensive game plan. He's coming off a 35 carry game, gets another plush matchup this week again against the Detroit Lions, who are 27th in rush defense DVOA. Barkley has scored double-digit DraftKings fantasy points in every game this season with 5 over 20 and a high of 36.4. He's exceeded points projections 70% of the time. And then you just threw that in there, 14% projected ownership. So at 8,900, I'm not sure how much I dig that. It's a high price tag to pay because you're going to pay down at wide receiver across all three of your wide receiver spots. It's very, very tough. But I felt like we really couldn't go through the show without mentioning Saquon Barkley and the potential there because he is such a cash lock at that position. So I went back and forth on it. I did debate on it, but I felt like I really had to bring up Saquon Barkley and just show him some love in week 11.
Yeah, no, I love Barkley this week, and if you can figure out a way to fit him in, I think that he's a absolute great play. This is a tough slate. This is one of the tougher slates that we've had in the last couple of weeks. Pricing is super tight, and as far as the running backs go, you got Barkley up there at the top and pricing, but you throw Barkley, excuse me, and Justin Fields into a lineup, and all of a sudden the wide receivers that you're forced to plug in are not super sexy by any means, and there are a lot of wide receivers I love in that 7K range this week that I'm trying to get to, and it's tough to get a Justin Fields and a Saquon Barkley in there and still get the guys that I think at the wide receiver position have slate breaking upside this week.
I will mention this too. This is what happens at the midway point of every NFL season. You get down to crunch time. You get down to where everybody's priced fairly. You're not talking about week 1 or 2 where, you've got guys that are mispriced. So this is the nitty gritty. This is where you dig deep, and this is where you really have to do your research, do your time, follow the analysts you like, and just do the work, put in the legwork, because it's a tough time of the year. It's a time of the year where a lot of people drop out. It's a time of the year where you can take advantage of that.
I'll mention another running back here that is going to be semi-popular this week. We may see his ownership come down a little bit with the game being moved there to Detroit. That's Devin Singletary there for the Bills. He's coming in at 5,800 this week, and over his last 7 games, he's hovering around a 70% snap share, which ranks 3rd at the position. Josh Allen, we know, is still not 100% healthy, and the run game gets a pretty cake matchup on paper this week as Cleveland ranks 2nd worst in total fantasy points per game allowed to the running back position, while also ranking 4th worst in yards per carry with 5.23 yards per tote. I like Devin Singletary this week. He's a little bit more popular than I'd like, but again, I think a lot of people were planning on this being a snow game, one in which Josh Allen would have to kind of throttle back and let Singletary grind it down. As of right now, it looks like, where did I see Stephon Diggs coming in at 12%? I think that's going to go up a little bit. He's a decent value this week as well. And Josh Allen coming in at 8% right now. I think this game being moved into an indoor dome, we are going to see those numbers increase as far as the passing game goes. And I think that will ultimately bring Devin Singletary's ownership down a little bit, maybe around the 12% is what I'd guess.
Yeah, Singletary was definitely a guy that I had on my sheet early in the week because last week he did have those 13 attempts for 47 yards and those 2 touchdowns, I think, were what made his game. But if I'm being honest, if I look back farther than that, week 9, 8.8 points, week 8, 9.3, week 6, 14.7. You're just seeing like a lot of duds. And I do think, like you said, people were counting on that snow game and him getting handed the ball quite a bit. So for me, Devin Singletary at 5,800, I think if I'm just being honest, I think there's better options personally that I would go to. But I don't hate it. And the Bills being indoors is going to completely change the atmosphere, man. It's going to be something that nobody can really predict. We don't know what the game plan will be. I do kind of feel like it's a Gabe Davis week. I've got in my gut that Gabe Davis is going to have a blow up week. I know he caught that touchdown pass last week. Definitely dropped it, but whatever. It is what it is. So I think this Bills Cleveland game is going to be something interesting. A guy I want to talk about, a guy that I feel like is a lock, and a guy that I feel like everybody knows is a lock. It's not a secret really anymore. We've been on this guy all year long. Ramondre Stevenson, we were on this guy last year, and it just didn't pan out to come out quite as quickly. But Ramondre Stevenson is the focal point of this New England Patriots offense. You will get a little bit of Damian Harris in there, but for the most part, it is Ramondre Stevenson. Stevenson saw a matchup against the Jets just a couple of weeks ago. He performed well in all phases of the game. He ran for 71 yards on 16 carries and added a whopping 7 receptions for 72 yards. If, and I mean if, because it might not happen, but if he has another big receiving game, he should be another top 10 fantasy running back in week 11. Ramondre Stevenson is my feel-good story of 2022. I know that probably is something similar for our guy Rusty. Over at SOD. I love Ramondre Stevenson, and he's still not priced too high. He's only 6,700. He's not over 7,000, but his ownership has crested 20%. So I won't ramble anymore, but I still love Stevenson in both GPP and cash formats.
Yeah, no, I think he's a great play this week. He's been amazing. I think he's going to end up being this next year. Redraft season, dynasty, I think he is going to be a top 6, top 7 running back. Whether or not Damian Harris is still there, if he's gone, I mean, the hype on Stevenson is going to be ridiculous. There's still time to go buy him right now in dynasty. I think he's worth it, man. His price is going to continue to rise.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I'm in probably a dozen dynasty leagues, and I have him in probably 8. So it'd be hard for me to go any further. I know Beezy, our boy Beezy at SOD, tried to trade for Ramondre in week 2, and I said, I'm going to stick with him. I love him. Thank God I did.
All right, I'm going to talk about a guy coming in around 6% ownership on this slate. That might go up a little bit as we get closer to Sunday, and that's Brian Robinson, the Commanders running back. He's coming in at 5,300, and as I mentioned, 6% projected ownership. And this play is simple. Robinson is coming off of a week in which we saw him tote the rock 26 times. That's pretty good volume for a guy that gets a gravy matchup this week. The Houston Texans defense, one that we've been targeting for the run game all season long. He's giving up 24.3 rushing fantasy points per game. That is the most in the NFL, and 5.45 yards per carry, the second most. The Commanders are 3.5-point favorites here on the road in this matchup. I think that's a great game environment for Brian Robinson, who's getting the volume. Yes, we know that there is some risk involved with Brian Robinson and this Commanders team, being connected to this Commanders offense, but the price tag at 5,300 and this ownership at 6%. I mean, I'll have some Brian Robinson this week.
I don't think you're alone either. I've seen a lot of love on Twitter for Brian Robinson. There's a lot of feel-good stories floating around. I do not hate it at all. I do think there's a lot of potential there. I think that this Commanders offense is still kind of working itself into a rhythm. Excuse me. However, I do believe that a lot of the fuel that goes to this Commanders offense right now is Taylor Heineke, and Terry McLaurin. I do think that is the so to speak, the fuel of this offense. So I don't hate it. There's a lot of people that love it, so definitely won't dog it.
All right, Nate, you want to talk about Canva before we move into our wide receiver portion?
Yeah, so obviously Canva, they've only been partnered with us for coming up on a month now, but they've been a part of the show since our inception well over a year ago. Canva has supplied all of these great graphics that you see on screen that are produced by our brother in arms, brother Matt, who makes all these great layovers. He spends a lot of time every week doing it. There's not too much to say. These look so great because brother Matt has really mastered the art of Canva and, the different settings you can use, the different color alterations and everything. He's taken several courses on this. So if you were to also use, our link and partner with Canva, brother Matt will give you a free consultation, a little bit of a free heads up, a little bit of a briefing on what you're getting into, how to stand out in the industry, because with the way it is right now, we're not going to lie. Fantasy football, there's tons of people everywhere. But if you want to stand out too, you can use Canva. You can use a little bit of advice from brother Matt. You can help separate yourself from the rest of the crowd by using Canva and Brother Matt's advice to go a little bit further in the industry and stand out amongst a very, very big crowd of talented people. So if you want any more information, the link will be in our description. You can also DM us on Twitter. You know, you can hit us up on Discord, anywhere that we might be. Feel free to reach out, talk to us about a consultation, and we can hit you up with the link, and Canva will also hook you up. So it's a very, very good deal for Brother Matt's advice, because he's probably the most talented producer in the industry.
Yeah, man, Canva's been great since we started using Canva. Our whole team has you know, at some point or another made use of it. It's been absolutely wonderful. One of the best editing platforms that there is. I mean, you can create just about anything, share it with one another. It's fantastic. I can't say enough good things about Canva.
Yeah, even Twitter, we use it on Twitter picks, we use it on overlays, we use it on goofy picks that we share in the DMs. It's super easy. That's what's cool about it, is like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but if you want to get next level, Brother Matt will hook you up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some wide receivers, Nate. I know you're in on Russell Wilson this week, and we already mentioned Courtland Sutton. He's coming in at 6,000 this week, and we like him.
Yeah, so you and I have been together we're coming up on 2 years now, and I have never mentioned one time Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton on SODFS, but today is a first. Given the theory that I like Russell Wilson, I'm hoping that Courtland Sutton also puts together a decent day. I think he makes a useful pass catcher to pair with Wilson, especially with Judy's likely absence. Sutton put together an efficient week 5 with 52 yards, 1 touchdown effort against the Raiders on 7 targets in week 4. And he also saw a postseason 11 targets against the Titans in week 10 after his position mate essentially missed the entire game. So if there's going to be I kind of go back to the same thing with Russell Wilson. If there's going to be a week that we see something decent, I think it's going to be here. I wouldn't expect, some kind of 36 or 37 point performance. Don't expect that. But if you can hit 25, Courtland Sutton can hit the end zone on 7-8 targets and, 7 catches, your money at $6,000.
Yeah, no, if I'm definitely going to bring Russell Wilson into my lineup, I absolutely like bringing Sutton along, and mentioned Dulich. He burnt me this past week, but I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to go back to him this week. I believe in the talent. He's got a good matchup again this week, so I'm not afraid to go back to him in those builds. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't be afraid, because that's what everybody else does, is they shy away. So, stick your poker in the flames and stir up that fire, and let's try to win some money.
Nathan knows here in the chat. He knows Greg D's up for a bounce back this week, and we are buying. I mentioned Joe Burrow, so I'm going to go ahead and mention this condensed receiving core in T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. T. Higgins coming in at 7,100 this week. He's pretty popular, coming in at around 15% projected ownership, but Tyler Boyd coming in at 6,500. He's coming in at 4% projected ownership, and I like that right there. That lets me know I'm going to have a little bit more Tyler Boyd exposure than I am Higgins. They both have great matchups. Let's start with Higgins. He ranks 15th best out of 110 qualified receivers in fantasy points per route run, 13th best in air yards per carry, or per target, and with the 13th highest touchdown rate across from cover 1 during his career. Well, the Steelers utilize cover 1 at the 4th highest rate in the league, a whopping 33%. So T. Higgins is in a great spot here against a Steelers secondary that, as far as the cornerbacks go, just can't seem to get right. And that also extends to our guy Tyler Boyd coming in at 4% projected ownership, because the Steelers have been crushed by opposing slot wide receivers this season. They're giving up the 4th most receiving yards per game to slot wide receivers on the season. Tyler Boyd has a great matchup. I like both these guys. And again, getting back to Joe Burrow stacks here. Joe Burrow and Just maybe Tyler Boyd might be a better large field GPP stack. Maybe throw a Hayden Hurst there at the tight end position. Again, T. Higgins is coming in at around 15% projected ownership. Yes, you can include him in your bro stack, but if you're going large field, I think Tyler Boyd might be the better play.
Yeah, man, I'm a humongous T. Higgins fan. I really, really love the kid, and he's super talented. I think it's just, obviously Jamar Chase is still hurt, but we really just haven't seen it this year. And I don't know exactly what it is that's kind of exploiting this Bengals defense, but T. Higgins only has 3 touchdowns on the year. He did have 7 receptions on 8 targets last week, as you mentioned, but I'd like to see a little bit more. I do think he has the potential any week for a breakout. He's obviously a supremely talented young man, and I hope that he does well. But it's 7,100. I do think I lead Boyd at 6,500. If I wanted to roll my dice, I do think I'll take that little bit of that $600 discount and roll my dice that way. But man, it's so tough with these Bengals right now. They're not the same team as they were last year, even though the offense hasn't really changed much.
Let's talk Terry McLaurin, Nate.
Yeah, with Terry McLaurin, I mentioned him back in week 9. I was not on the show last week, but I did mention him in week 9. I mentioned Taylor Heineke. I mentioned the potential. And before the show, before we really even got into things, I did mention this Washington Commanders offense right now with Carson Wentz and with Taylor Heineke. You don't see a huge difference, but what you do see a big difference in is the production of Terry McLaurin, because Taylor Heineke will throw the ball up to Terry McLaurin at least 2 to 3 times per game. He will just give him a shot at making a play. And as a fan of Terry McLaurin, Dan, I know you love Terry McLaurin. We love to see this. Since Taylor Heineke took over at quarterback, McLaurin has received 8, 9, and 11 targets. That is completely opposite of what he was seeing before that. He's exceeded 100 yards receiving twice and scored a touchdown. He's not being a star-studded athlete, but he's making noise. It's Terry McLaurin. It's the guy we want to see. He's obviously much better off with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. Heineke will throw up a dime and just hope McLaurin catches it, and at least 50% of the time he will. So until Terry McLaurin gets priced up above $6,000, I'm going to play him, even at 19% projected ownership.
Yeah, man, Terry McLaurin fucking owns those Eagles, dude. Every time he plays the Eagles, he shows out. So love to see him ball. Though. Yeah, absolutely. Eagles.
It's going to be a great game.
Their D hasn't been quite as stout as we saw at the beginning of the year. They've been a little bit exposed here these last couple of weeks, but still love the Eagles and what they have going on this year. Let's talk about another super popular wide receiver this week, and one that I like a lot. That is CeeDee Lamb there for the Dallas Cowboys. He exploded this past week with 41 DK fantasy points on 11 receptions for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is being force-fed with targets as of right now, the second highest target share with 32%, the 11th most yards per game with 78.4, 11th most air yards per game with 102.4, and the 10th most air yardage share at 41%. This matchup is an implied for the second highest combined total on the main slate, sitting at 48.5 as of right now. And Minnesota has seeded the 7th highest completion percentage, the 4th most passing yards per game. I will have plenty of Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb stacks this week. Give me CeeDee Lamb at 7,500. He's coming in at 21% projected ownership. So obviously we're not, a lot of people are going to be chasing that 41 point fucking burger that he put up this past week. And I think it's warranted, to be honest with you. I mean, Minnesota just gives it up to the slot position. CeeDee Lamb is in an absolute smash spot, coming off of an absolute smash game. I mean, it's fucking smash burgers. Let's do it.
I'm not going to talk shit about it. I mean, I had him on the show sheet first before I backtracked and started going with cheaper options because of the more expensive running backs that I liked. Obviously, I love CeeDee Lamb. I think this is a great spot. Dak Prescott has been inconsistent for the better part of a year and a half. That does worry me. But against this Minnesota Vikings defense, there's nothing that I would love more than for Devin's team to crumble to my Detroit Lions making that playoff push. So there's no way that I hate this. It's a great play, man. CeeDee Lamb at 7,500 is still underpriced. I think he's due for another big week, especially against Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have a ton of exposure this week.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump into our last wide receiver with a little bit of a bonus plug. I'm going to say I'm going to go into Jacoby Myers, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. He's priced at 5,500 on DraftKings with a projected ownership of 11%. I'm almost surprised that his projected ownership is this high. I thought it would be single digits if I was being completely honest with you. The New England Patriots offense has generally been run through Ramondre Stevenson, as we know, and Damian Harris. When passing, Jacoby Myers, though, is the guy. His 19.5% target share ranks higher than both Mike Evans, T. Higgins, and then you can throw in also Chris Godwin. He's been the favorite target of any New England quarterback so far this year. Myers and the Patriots have obviously a tough divisional matchup this week against the New York Jets. And the last time these teams met in Week 8, Myers caught 9 of 13 targets for 60 yards and a tutty. So I think we see similar volume this week. I think we see similar production, and I think that Myers gets another touchdown this week. It is obviously kind of a gamble play at 5,500, but I think that you can play this with confidence in GPPs. I don't think there's a huge risk here. Even if Myers doesn't score a touchdown, he records 8 catches, for 50 to 70 yards. He'll still hit value, so you're not going to take too big of a loss. I think that it's a high floor, high ceiling, also kind of a gamble play. But I do also want to mention a guy that we mentioned earlier in the show before, we move on to our tight ends. That is Gabe Davis. This is a guy I had on the sheet at the beginning of the week, and I kind of, got scared about. But I do think there is humongous fucking upside here. This might be my play of the week at $6,300. I think, last week he had 6 receptions, 10 yards, 10 targets on 93 yards, averaging 15.5 yards per reception, a longest of 22 and a touchdown. I do think Gabe Davis is due for a breakout week, and I do think it does happen in the Dome at Detroit. If the Buffalo Bills are allowed to make it there this week, Gabe Davis could be your sleeper play of the week. And there's no way I could leave the show without mentioning him one more time.
Yeah, no, I love that projected ownership. Again, I think these are going to sway once the news gets out that, the game has been moved. It's not going to be a snow game. I do think this Buffalo passing game is going to inflate a little bit. Singletary's going to come down a little bit. But as of right now, Davis sub 5%. I mean, yeah, we know he's got that slate breaking upside tied to Josh Allen. So I absolutely love that call. I want to take a minute to mention Elite Picks. It is the newest daily fantasy lineup optimizer. Take as much control as you'd like by locking in and customizing players and letting the DFS lineup optimizer fill in the rest. Elite Picks optimizer uses top projections and provides cutting-edge multi-lineup features to direct you into the lineup guidance that you need to build a winning DraftKings and or FanDuel lineup each and every week. Never tried an optimizer before? That's no problem. You can try this one absolutely free. Check the link in the description. Click on the link. Sign up for a free week of optimizer access today.
Yeah, I won't lie. Dan is the one that turned me on to Elite Picks, and their content is very, very solid. So I will be using it moving forward, and I will be relaying to you guys in a general way how well it affects my DFS lineup. So shout out to Dan on hooking up Sons of DFS with that hookup. Before we move into tight ends, as we move into tight ends, I should say, I do want to mention my guy, TJ Hawkinson. He obviously got traded to the Minnesota Vikings no longer than 2 weeks ago, but since he's been in Minnesota, things have looked up. His ceiling has kind of dropped. He's not necessarily this big play guy anymore where you're expecting these 40-yard catches, but his floor has improved, which is generally good, especially in a week where tight ends are looking shallow. I do believe Mark Andrews, as of this afternoon, was a game time decision. I think that is a AKA for Mark Andrews does not play. As of right now, Hawkinson has 19 targets, 16 receptions, and 115 yards. Obviously, no touchdowns over the last 2 weeks, but Cousins likes to throw him the ball. And he did play Dallas earlier this year where they held him to 4 receptions for 48 yards. But I do think Hawkinson's due for a touchdown. There's not any really great tight end plays this week. Obviously, there's some cheaper plays, which SODFS kind of tends to lean to. But I don't hate Hawkinson at 5,300. I wanted to throw his name out here. I do think he scores, and I do think it comes this week against Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't mind that call. Again, just the wide receivers I like, the quarterbacks I like, and the running backs that we know you have to pay up for. As per usual, I'm looking to get as cheap as I can at the tight end position, and 5,300 is a little steep for my builds, but I do love attacking that game.
Yeah, so with mentioning Hawkinson, I will say my favorite play of the slate is going to be Cole Kmet. I'm going to jump right into the next guy. Right now, I think it's very, very difficult for you to get off of Fields and Kmet, especially paired together in a stack. We mentioned it earlier. It's shocking that the Bears and the Falcons have the highest projected total on the slate, but they're playing in a dome, and both defenses are pretty much complete shit. So Cole Kmet has scored a touchdown in 3 straight games with 2 of it each in the last 2 contests. He hasn't been peppered with targets. He's received 7, 6, and 2, but he's received 5 red zone looks in that span. So Atlanta has allowed the 3rd most reception yards to tight ends this season. You're building a recipe for Cole Kmet to just have another good game. I hate to say that exact termage or verbiage together because it usually means you're building up for a downfall, but Cole Kmet's building for another solid week. At $4,100 and a 6% projected ownership, I think you lock. I already told Dan he had the best quarterback play. You lock in Justin Fields. I think you lock in Cole Kmet too at 6%.
Yeah, there's really no better thing, and Cole Kmet's price is actually getting up there a little bit at this point at 4,100. I mean, as far as I'm concerned,
Still
that's
not
getting
bad.
up there. It's still not bad, and I think he's in a great spot this week. But just attaching a cheap tight end to the quarterback that you're choosing,
It's risky.
It's just a great way though to save some salary and still attach upside to the quarterback in which you've decided to play. So I'm never going to argue taking a tight end along with whatever quarterback you select.
Yeah, no, I totally see, but at the same time, I do see the risk there too because it's like they're either going to have a 5.5, 6, 7 point game, or they're going to have hopefully a 15+ point game. So there's risk and reward, but at 4,100, the lower the salary, the less risk.
Yeah, and it's a great matchup against my Falcons. We give it up anywhere and everywhere.
I understand, bro. You're not alone.
Tight end pump play of the week for me this week. I've got one here. That's Jordan Akins there for the Houston Texans versus Washington. He's coming in at 2,600 this week. He had 3 receptions for 70 yards or something this past week. Obviously a sketchy play. Another one is Cager there for the Giants. I think he's 2,500 is another guy that I'm interested in. Again, I'm fishing all the way out here at the bottom. Need these guys to have a catch and fall into the end zone, or 2 or 3 catches for 50 yards. And obviously they're more than bringing me back. There's just guys there at the wide receiver position and other positions that I want to be able to pay up for. And so DST, tight end, I'm all the way down at the bottom this week.
Yeah, but I'm starting Jordan Akins in one of our SOD leagues, kind of forcefully, and honestly, and obviously not to my detriment. But a couple defenses I wanted to mention. One is, they're actually in the same game. I wanted to mention both the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. I think the Patriots defense is one of the best in the league, and I think that Zach Wilson has taken, I don't have to think. He's taken 7 sacks and thrown 7 picks in 3 games against them. I do also think that the Jets defense is pretty decent at getting at the quarterback. So you're talking 2 defenses here that are fairly underpriced and could get at the quarterback. Nobody wants to pay up a defense. Do not pay up a defense. You're cutting salary at skill positions, and we don't want to do that. So I do think attacking this Patriots-Jets game, no matter which side of the ball you go, is good in both ways. I do lean Patriots a little bit. I think Bill Belichick should have, a game plan ready to pounce on these Jets, as we head into week 11. So Dan, you got any defenses maybe that you like?
Yeah, I'll just highlight the Pittsburgh Steelers DST. They are 2,200. That's pretty much at the very bottom there. And yes, they are playing the Bengals, a team that I'm interested in this week, but I don't think that that necessarily matters. Joe Burrow gets sacked, at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Pittsburgh Steelers are often bringing the pressure. I mean, these two teams faced off in week one, and Pittsburgh's DST put up 26 DK fantasy points that week, and that was on the back of 7 sacks and 4 interceptions. I don't know if you remember that game, Nate. It was
Oh,
where
I
Joe
do.
Burrow was just throwing pick after pick. Well, obviously we know that the success can be there. They expect a couple of sacks, maybe a turnover or two. And again, they're all the way down there at the bottom. You're never gonna find a qualm with me when you're picking a DST that's bottom one, bottom two, bottom three. When all else fails, it's you didn't spend up. So it doesn't matter. If it doesn't pan out, no big deal. You still put yourself in a position to maximize your dollar amounts in your other positions. So, but this week we get the Steelers down there at 2.2. I mean, it feels like a lock for me in most of my builds.
Yeah, there's absolutely not a chance I'm going to hate on that. I did see Nate's question asking about Jamal Williams. So when you go to the Detroit Lions running back situation, it's honestly just kind of fucking sad right now because DeAndre Swift hasn't done really anything since he's been back. And at the same time, Jamal Williams hasn't done shit. It's because you're seeing basically a 30, 30, 30, or you're really seeing like a 40, 40, 20 workload with these Lions running backs. And it's fucking not appetizing for fantasy at all. Jamal Williams, his last 3 games, 11.9, 10.1, and 22.6 fantasy points. There's no way that you can bet on any of these guys. You've probably got somebody better that you can start, Nate. If I'm being completely honest with you, I just don't see how you can rely on Jamal Williams right now. The only upside right now to Jamal Williams is that he's getting the goal line work, and with the Lions offense, you don't know how much of that you're going to get anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to find ownership for those Lions running backs, but they're both must be pretty far down here.
I
Sub
I
five,
just,
sub 5% for both of them.
yeah, you're completely just playing dice at that point and really just gambling on nothing because there's been no proof of anything that we can look to think will be good.
Yeah, Swift is coming in at 1% projected ownership. I mean,
No,
yeah,
I can't do it. There's not a chance I'll
yeah,
do it. Not at
yeah.
this
I
price
mean,
tag.
yeah, I feel that.
And even if Nate's talking season long fantasy football, there's still got to be somebody out there better than Jamal Williams or DeAndre Swift on your team. Maybe not on your team as far as DeAndre Swift, but Nate and I have talked a lot, and I know a lot of his rosters, and I think he has better options, if it's my opinion. Even talking about guys like Christian Watson that I know he has and things like that. So it's getting late in the year, and it's time to gamble on these rookies.
Yeah, Foster Moreau is definitely a guy worth keeping an eye on. With the guys on IR, Waller and Renfro. Outside of that, Devontae Adams in the past game, there's really not much. Moreau's been a guy who's been there. He's got the chemistry with Carr, so definitely a guy that we'll be keeping an eye on as the rest of the season unfolds there. And so, I do like Foster Moreau.
How wild is it that Josh Jacobs has come out of this Raiders offseason as the guy that shines over Devontae Adams paired with Derek Carr? And like, what a fucking wild year, dude.
Yeah, the Raiders have been pretty fucking trash.
I hated Josh Jacobs a year ago. I completely backed down. I was wrong as fuck.
All right, Nate, I want to encourage everybody to check out Fantasy Points.
Yeah. So with Fantasy Points, you have access to the newest and best websites in the industry for your season-long daily fantasy and NFL betting needs. Access to articles, live streams, podcasts, cheat sheets, community chat, online tools, and so much more available at your fingertips. It's the only subscription that you will need this fantasy football season. Sign up for Fantasy Points premium content using promo code SUNS22, and you can get 10% off at fantasypoints.com. Go check it out because if you ride with Fantasy Points, you'll score more in 2022 and far beyond.
Yeah, come on. Love that, man. Hey, big shout out to Canva. Again, we couldn't be happier to be partnered up with them. It's been instrumental in our success here. Please make sure you are subscribed to the SOD YouTube page. Click the bell so that you never miss a show with us. Big thank you to the Fantasy Points Media Group and our guy, brother Matt, behind the scenes with us tonight. As per usual, follow him on Twitter at DY_a nasty dude. Big hat tip to brother Matt, man. He's putting in the work behind the scenes each and every week, getting us extra crispy for you guys each and every Friday night. So can't say thank you enough to brother Matt. Make sure you check out ViridianGlobal.com for all your Sons of Dynasty and SODFS gear that you can have. We're heading into the holiday season. Christmas just around the corner. Get yourself some SOD gear for the new year as we continue this season, and we'll be riding on into the playoffs. We got a Thanksgiving Day slate coming up here. We'll get a little bit of excited about that. And then coming off of that Thanksgiving Day, we're going to be back in the booth on a Friday night talking the main slate there for that weekend. So big looking forward to the holiday season here with SODFS.
Hey, Nate, we appreciate you tuning in very much, bro. So good to have you here, Dan. It's so good to be back. Brother Matt, thank you so much for all the work you do. I know that you have a very, very busy life outside of this, as do all of us, and we appreciate your effort as to putting this show forward. I just want to thank, the rest of the SOD team, as you mentioned, BZ, Devin, Coach Craig. We love all you guys. This is a group effort all the way around. So thank everybody that tuned in, and hit us up on Twitter this weekend. Hopefully we can win a shitload of money.
Yeah, man, let's do it. On behalf of SODFS, he is Nate. I am Dan. Much love to everybody out there. Fucking boxers are riding up my asshole. Oh, shit.